In 1991, the woods swallowed a child. Henry Deaver was 13 when he vanished from his backyard in Castle Rock, Maine, a town that had already seen its share of quiet tragedies. People searched for weeks, flyers on telephone poles, bloodhounds sniffing in circles. Helicopters scanned the trees, but the forest gave nothing back. His father, Matthew Deaver, believed he'd heard the voice of God tell him where to look. He wandered deeper each day, convinced his faith would bring Henry home. Then one night, during a snowstorm, he slipped and fell from a cliff. They found his body 2 days later, face frozen against the rocks. The town mourned one tragedy and tried to forget the other. Henry was declared dead. His mother, Ruth, refused to accept it, and Sheriff Alan Pangborn couldn't let it go. He went into the woods one last time that winter, alone, with the snow deep enough to erase footprints behind him. He wandered aimlessly until something pulled him forward. In the clearing beyond the tree line, there was a lake, frozen solid under moonlight. And there, standing barefoot on the ice, was Henry. The boy didn't speak. He didn't shiver. He didn't know how long he'd been gone. No bruises, no injuries, no sign of survival. Just silence. Alan carried him back like a miracle. The doctors were baffled. Henry's core temperature was low but stable. No signs of malnutrition, no trauma, internal or otherwise. When asked where he'd been, Henry only said, "I don't remember." No one pressed further. A boy came back from the dead. The town moved on. Ruth tried to rebuild a life. Henry changed. Quiet, disconnected, different. Over time, he left Castle Rock, became a lawyer, started over somewhere else. But Castle Rock never really changed. Years passed. The town's only prison, Shawshank State Penitentiary, was sold to a private corporation. The new warden, Dale Lacey, ruled it like a monk in a fortress, quiet, disciplined. He believed the town was cursed, that God had turned his face away and evil had moved in. On the morning of his retirement in 2018, Dale left his house, drove to Castle Lake, and accelerated off a cliff. His body was found in the wreckage below, the windshield spiderwebbed with blood. No note, no explanation. His replacement, Warden Teresa Porter, arrived with a plan to modernize, expand capacity, improve oversight. She began reviewing the facility room by room until she came across Wing F. It hadn't been used in over 30 years. No reason listed, no documentation, just a rusted gate, a padlock, and a hallway leading to darkness. She ordered a routine inspection. Officer Dennis Zalewski volunteered. He expected rats, maybe some broken piping. Instead, he found a footprint in the dust, fresh, leading to a stairwell sealed in darkness. He followed it down. At the bottom, he found a metal cage. Inside was a man, pale, thin, awake, watching him. Dennis radioed for backup. There were no records of his intake, no booking, no sentence, no ID. Teresa ordered a full medical check. The man didn't speak until the doctor asked for his name. "My name is Henry Deaver," he said. The real Henry Deaver was living hundreds of miles away. Teresa panicked. A scandal like this could end careers. She swore Dennis to secrecy, told him to bury the paperwork. But Dennis couldn't let it go. Not when the man in the cage hadn't aged a day. Not when he'd been living in the dark, in silence, surrounded by cigarette butts and an old Bible. He contacted the real Henry. At first, Henry thought it was a mistake, but something in Dennis's voice unsettled him. He returned to Castle Rock for the first time in years and visited his adoptive mother, Ruth, now slipping into dementia. He was surprised to find Alan visiting her often. Old scars lingered between them, but Alan seemed glad to see him. Henry asked about the man in the cage. Alan said nothing. At the prison, Teresa and her officers kept the story airtight. No paperwork, no confirmation. Henry left, frustrated, but the question gnawed at him. Who was that man? That night, Dennis sat in the surveillance room, watching monitors flicker in black and white. When he glanced back at the cage, it was empty. All the guards on that floor were dead. No wounds, no sign of struggle, just blank faces, silent corpses. Dennis ran to the hallway, but everything looked normal. Nothing moved. The cage was still empty. The man was gone. Castle Rock's long history of madness and death, the suicides, the disappearances, the murders, had started again, and the boy on the ice had come home. Dennis Zalewski was the only one who saw what was coming. After the prison guards were found dead near the empty cage, he sounded the alarm, but no one believed him. There were no signs of forced entry or violence. The autopsies were inconclusive. Teresa Porter ordered a lockdown, then quietly reinstated the man into a secure cell, isolating him from the rest of the prison. She refused to admit what Dennis had seen. The deaths were unnatural. Desperate for answers, Dennis met again with Henry Deaver and told him everything. About the cage, the missing records, the deaths, and the name the man gave, Henry's name. Henry promised to help, but Dennis was growing paranoid. He feared for his job, for his life. Teresa made it clear, if he spoke to the media or testified, he'd be finished. But something had already started to break inside Dennis. Henry dug into Dale Lacey's past. He visited Dale's home, where he met his blind wife. She was polite, even warm, until he asked about the basement. Her demeanor changed instantly. She ended the visit, her unease sharp and unmistakable. At a bar, Sheriff Alan Pangborn sat across from Teresa and told her what he'd never written in any report. Years ago, Dale had confided in him, said Castle Rock was plagued by a literal evil. Not metaphor, not madness, something real, something in human form. Dale claimed he caught it and locked it in the cage. After that, the town had peace. Fewer suicides, fewer unexplained deaths. Dale believed he'd done God's work. Before Alan left the bar that night, he gave Teresa one warning. Never let that man out. But she already had. Twice. And now the body count was rising. Determined to erase the problem, Teresa placed the man in a shared cell with the most violent inmate in the prison. No cameras, no guards nearby. She assumed it would end the problem for good. The next morning, the cellmate was dead. No signs of injury. The autopsy found advanced stage cancer, despite the inmate having passed a physical days earlier. It didn't make sense. None of it did. That same day, Dennis let Henry into the prison yard under the guise of a church visit. From a distance, Henry watched the man. Still young, still calm, still wearing that same blank expression. Henry snapped a photo before the guards dragged the man back inside. Back at home, Alan burned an envelope. Inside was a letter from Dale, dated just before his suicide. It laid out everything: the dreams, the voice that guided him, the belief that the man was the devil in flesh. He warned that sunlight must never touch him again, that his freedom would be the end of Castle Rock. Dennis, pushed to the edge, told Henry he would testify, but Henry had his doubts. He visited Molly Strand for help with Ruth, but was shocked when Molly refused. She was different, more erratic. She confessed that years ago she had killed Matthew Deaver by disconnecting his life support. She said she did it because young Henry once told her his father wasn't really his father. He made her life a nightmare, and she could feel that pain like it was her own. That's when she revealed the truth. Molly had always been able to feel what Henry felt, even now. Then she went live on local TV. During an unscheduled interview, Molly exposed the story of the man in the cage. She accused the prison of abuse, of violating basic human rights. The town was stunned. Henry was furious but also confused. How did she know so much? Molly said she could feel his thoughts, and the man's too. Public pressure mounted. Teresa panicked. She offered the man money to disappear. A fake name, a new life. Henry warned him not to take the deal. He promised to keep fighting, to get him justice. But something in the man's eyes said he already knew how it would end. Days later, Dennis told Henry that Teresa planned to destroy the cage and erase all traces of the man's imprisonment. She wanted it over. Henry promised to help Dennis get into law school if he testified. Dennis agreed. For the first time, he believed they might actually win. But things fell apart fast. Dennis watched inmates being brutalized for minor infractions. The guards were treating the prison like a hunting ground. That night, he snapped. Gun in hand, Dennis shot his way through the facility, killing guards as he went. He reached the man's cell, but the prison's tactical team was faster. Dennis was gunned down in the hallway. His body fell just outside the cage. Castle Rock grieved. The official story was a breakdown, stress. No mention of the man in the cage. Henry mourned. But something inside him cracked. He had come to help. Now Dennis was dead. Molly was spiraling. Ruth was slipping, and Castle Rock was devouring itself again. So Henry changed course. He agreed to Teresa's deal. He would take the man away, get him out of town, and never come back. Teresa handed him the release papers with shaking hands. But Henry wasn't done. He took the man to a clinic first. The doctors ran tests. Their conclusion was stunning: retrograde amnesia, nearly identical to the case of Henry's disappearance as a child. Same blank spots, same triggers, same stillness. Henry didn't say anything, just nodded. He took the man to Molly's office. Molly gave him a room. That night, the man left. He wandered into an apartment where a family was celebrating a child's birthday. Within an hour, they were dead. Police found no weapon, no suspect, no sign of struggle, just silence, like the air had stopped. Back in town, Alan was being honored for his service. Ruth wandered off mid-ceremony and nearly jumped from a bridge. Henry found her in time and held her tight as the sun came up. Elsewhere, the man climbed a crumbling building and told Molly he could hear every terrible thing happening in Castle Rock. Molly, standing beside him, realized she could hear it too. The man wasn't done yet. He arrived at Henry's house unannounced, calm, quiet, wearing Matthew Deaver's clothes. He asked to stay in the old workshop. Henry, exhausted, said yes. That night, Alan reviewed footage of the man leaving the house. He followed him into the woods. It had been 27 years, and the man hadn't aged a single day. Alan raised his gun and demanded answers. The man only said one thing: "I can help Ruth." Alan hesitated, and the devil kept walking. The woods in Castle Rock don't forget. Not the screams, not the blood, not the boy who vanished, or the man who never aged, not the ones who died trying to understand what this place is, or what it wants. Henry Deaver had spent his life trying to forget the past. Now it was all that remained. The man, the one who called himself Henry, the one who might have been from somewhere else, was back in his life, wearing his father's clothes, living in the old workshop, quiet, watching. Molly told Henry what the man had revealed to her, the story of another world, a brighter Castle Rock, one with sunlight that felt real. In that place, the man was a scientist. His father had heard the voice of God, just like Matthew. And in the basement of that version of home, he found a child locked in a cage, a child who claimed to be Henry. That boy hadn't aged either. Molly believed the man. She could feel him. She saw things she couldn't explain. But Henry refused. He'd spent too many years pretending Castle Rock was just another town. He wouldn't fall for its tricks again. Then Wendell heard the sound, that ringing in the ears that came out of nowhere, that pressure in the skull like something alive was knocking against the inside of your head. The same sound Henry heard the night he pushed his father off the cliff. The same sound that made Dennis go mad. The same sound that grew louder when the man smiled. Henry sent Wendell away, terrified the loop was starting again. He tried to protect what little he had left. He tried to make sense of the chaos. He visited Dale's house again, empty except for a cleaned basement. But upstairs he found paintings, dozens of them, all of the man, and one portrait of the man wearing Henry's childhood clothes. It didn't make sense. And then came Gordon and Lilith, a new couple in Dale's house. Friendly, until Henry started asking questions. Then Gordon attacked him and Lilith bled to death from her own knife. Jackie Torrance, Molly's friend, showed up just in time with an axe. The portrait, the murders, the sounds, everything was happening again. At Henry's home, the man waited for Molly. He spoke of her past like he'd lived it, of her death in the woods in another life. He told her he'd always known her, even when she died. Molly broke inside, not from fear, but from the weight of remembering something she had never lived. The man told her the truth. He didn't belong here. He came through a door in the woods, and it was closing. If it closed for good, he'd be trapped, just like last time. He asked Molly to bring Henry, said they had one chance to fix everything, to break the loop. Meanwhile, Ruth stood on a bridge, lost in fractured time, seeing Alan alive in one moment, dead the next. The town breaking apart around her, the past twisting in on itself. Molly found her and led her back, whispering comfort in a language only those broken by Castle Rock could understand. Henry tried to move on, but Teresa was already dead, hit by a truck, gone without a word. The new sheriff, paranoid and scared, labeled Henry a suspect. He said what others were whispering. Wherever Henry Deaver goes, blood follows. Henry begged Molly to take Wendell and leave Castle Rock forever. She agreed, but not before telling him where the man would be. Henry called the police and reported the location. They found the man and arrested him. Now the man sat in a cell across from Henry, pale, calm, always waiting. "You don't have much time," he said. "When the sounds stop, the door closes, and everything gets worse." The prison overflowed. Mistakes were made. Henry and the man, two Henrys, were placed in the same cage. Then the fighting started. Inmates rioted. Guards were overwhelmed. Chaos ripped through Shawshank like a knife through soft skin. Screams echoed in the halls. Blood soaked the tiles. And in that moment of collapse, Henry and the man escaped. Outside, Young, the interpreter once mentored by Odin, was dying. He tried to warn Henry not to go with the man, but the man pulled a gun and forced Henry into the woods, back to where it all began, where the trees remember, where the ice once held a boy. There, Henry remembered. He remembered the sound, the unbearable pressure in his skull, the moment he'd snapped, the push, his father falling, the cold, the silence. And suddenly he knew what had to be done. He turned on the man. They fought, desperate, brutal. The forest stood still, watching. Henry wrestled the gun away, forced the man down, locked him back inside the cage. Same place, same silence, same beginning. 1 year later, Castle Rock was quiet. The town breathed again. Stores reopened. Children played. Molly sold houses. Wendell lived with Henry, safe, growing, laughing. But something still sat at the edge of town, in the shadows of the prison. A cage, a man inside it, unaged, unmoving, watching. Henry visited sometimes. Each visit ended the same. The man sat in the dark, smiling, as if he remembered something Henry didn't, as if this had all happened before, as if it would happen again. The loop never breaks. Not here, not in Castle Rock,